All right. Oh, nice to meet you all. Welcome back after lunch. This is always a tough session, right? But all of you look awake. Good. I will not talk about guided selling. I will talk about guided buying. And this ties back to the market trends we see that Jeff mentioned yesterday, and we've been discussing all through the day. So guided selling, guided buying, is it just semantics or a new marketing mimic to bring something novel to the market? I intend to spend the next 20 to 25 minutes trying to show you that it's actually a new way of looking about selling in the business-to-business world. I will go a little bit higher now in this presentation and talk about the concept of guided buying, and then after me we will have my dear colleague Per Rodin that will talk about the underlying technologies. So, guided selling versus guided buying. You know, guided selling has been this is something we've talked about for 10 plus years. And for me, just to try to describe the difference between this and the shift we're going through here, is that guided selling is really about helping your sales force to sell better. It's really an inside-out perspective on selling. Whereas guided buying to me means that you're really listening to your customers. How are they buying? How do they want to interact with you? And what, how do they want to buy, basically? So that's more on an outside-in perspective. So that's the major shift, and I could probably stop the presentation here, but I won't. There's another thing here also. Guided buying is about selling when you're not there physically, right? So it's really, how can you sell in a good way and guide your customer to the right products and services when you're not there physically. So I will talk about some of the forces that are driving us in that direction, but first a quick look on the history in the rear mirror here. Digital natives, I come back to that. But anyway, in the good old days, the only way where you could meet and, the seller and the buyers could meet, was through trade fairs, basically. So the buying and the selling journey was synchronous. They started about the same time, right? You changed the contact details and you started to interact. Then along the way came the internet. I think that's about some 30 years ago. And for, the digital natives, this is what it looked like in the beginning. But it didn't fundamentally change anything when it came to the selling and the buying journey, right? This is more like a yellow pages, right? So it's still the guided or the buying journey and the selling journey started with a synchronous still. And then, at this point in time, we had technical configuration developed by engineers to manage the big variety or the increasing number of products or product options. And this was then exposed to the sales force, and that's where guided selling came along. And the term CPQ was invented. But still, even here, the start was synchronous. It started with a phone call or even an email maybe at that time. But the selling and the buying journey started pretty much at the same time. So what is now happening? First of all, there are three forces I think that are driving us in this direction. The first one is the buying journey. I think Jeff explained this very well yesterday. It's about the notion that these digital natives expect a different way of interact with you and your products and your services. Me being a digital immigrant, I agree to this. And I think it's even more so in a B2B session than a B2C. I think I was just thinking about this, that when I buy products, it happens every so often that maybe I go into a store and I do it. But when I do something and buy something as a professional, I would do 100% of my buying journey starts online. So that's one big force. The other one is the one we also mentioned, the brain drain, and its sibling, the turnover. The brain drain is, as we said, where your professionals retire and they go to Florida or Spain or Portugal and enjoy the retirement. And turnover, people are not staying in their role so long, so maybe after 4 or 5 years they move on to another fantastic adventures. And this is not only happening on the selling side, of course, it's happening equally well on the buying side. So you get more inexperienced sellers and more inexperienced buyers, you could say. So that's another shift. So it's happening on both sides of the deal. And the last thing that's driving this is maybe sort of an efficiency game or play where, having a sales force is very, very expensive. So if you can do this more efficiently with what I call low-touch sales here, that's also driving us in this direction. All right, does it make sense? So just to give a few examples here and some of the benefits. On the skiers left here, you see a few examples of the past world maybe, where you had a technical configuration. This could still be with guided selling. What we want to move to is maybe more something like this. I like this example. It's a public one maybe we have somebody here that works here. I'm not sure. But this is, I think, it's an excellent example of where you're meeting the buyer. You start with asking online, of course, how are you going to use the product? And it's not that way or that way, because you might still have experienced customers or your internal sales engineers or whatever you have that want to have this technical. So it's not or, it's just another layer on top of it. And if you do this successfully, there's a couple of clear benefits that we've seen so far. Of course, you will meet your buyers when they're ready to interact with you. So you'll meet them, you kind of push the sales journey to where the buying journey starts. The other ones are, of course, you can educate your customer early on, and you can build trust with them when you're not there selling, right? So this is happening without your interaction at this point. You get your improved customer satisfaction, of course, reduce sales cycles, ramp up your new sales rep to productivity faster, or enable low-touch sales. And as we've also seen, which I think is very, very important, even though it's on the bottom here, is that you will learn a lot about your customers when they interact with you online. So if this is so beneficial, I was actually struggling to find examples of guided buying or even guided selling. It's not that many examples that I see live out there. So why is this so hard? Here are some of the objections that I hear in my conversations with the organizations out there, customers and non-customers. The first one I hear a lot, and I think maybe this is the most frequent one. We don't have time for this now. We will add it later. And I respect that, but I think if you're doing a CPQ transformation or a digital transformation for that matter, it's so much easier to design something right from the beginning than retrofit something later. So, it might be worth the squeeze to do it upfront. The second one is, our sale or our products or our services are too technical, right? There are too many parameters that must be defined, or it requires a site visit, or whatever it might be. And I think the notion we're stuck in here is maybe that you need to take the sale all the way to a deal, or the buying journey to a deal. And that's not what I mean here. If you can take the buyer 30, 40, 50% down the journey, there's a lot of benefit in that. And it could end with a budgetary quote. It could end with that you present a couple of options before they contact you, or it could just be a hot lead for you. So I think you don't have to take it all the way for this to be super beneficial. This one I hear, we want to have a tight relationship with our customer. We're a people person company, We like people to interact. And I do too. And I think this is true, right, for existing customers. But how shall you find your next great customer if you're not there to tell them how great you are? You will maybe not get the chance. And then this one, I think, a good reason to call us. What you have in place is not fit for purpose, right? You cannot expose it online for whatever reason. It's legacy system, it's security rules, or just pure performance that is just okay for my direct sales force, but it would never be okay to expose it to a customer online. So this is just a few of the, maybe you recognize them. All right. So let's look at this buying journey. First, I call this the past interaction point. I don't know the terminology if it's okay, but that's what I mean when people met at a trade fair. The buying journey and the sales journey started at the same time. What is happening now, like we talked about a lot now, is that this gap is widening, right? The digital natives, if we want to blame them, they want to do a lot of research, and they might even want to go through a sales rep-free experience. And this new interaction point when the customer or the potential customer contacts you could be, for example, a budgetary quote, or you present them with a couple of options, or it could be a lead or something, or it could be all the way in some cases, right? Some products are very suitable to have totally rep-free. This time in between is what we call now the self-service. So that's where the guided buying concept really comes into play, right? It could still be of use for your direct sales to use as such as it is, as maybe a guided selling plus, if you will. But it really comes to shine during this period when you're not there to talk with your customers, or you're not even aware that they potentially want to buy something from you. And this period of time is really a time where you could build trust with your potential customer. You can educate them, and you can learn a lot. I think we saw this in the demo this morning as well with the forklifting company. You can learn a lot during this period of time about your customers. First, in the beginning, you might not even know who they are, so you can draw a conclusion about a segment of customers, how they behave, where they leave off the configuration, or where stopping, where they leave. But as you give them more and more value, eventually they want to give up maybe the contact details or who they are, and you can personalize it more and more. So there's a tremendous amount of information here that you can use in your feedback loop to get back to your product development, or how you sell, or you go to market. So next I wanted to show you a little bit how we go about and design these guided buying layers. So first of all, we start with and this is normally, used to highlight that this is normally how we would go about if you engage with our consultant team, and they would help you to develop this kind of guided buying layer, if you will, experience. Always start with your product. Why have you designed it? What pain does it solve? What kind of capability is it, or gap in the market is it that it fulfills? What needs does it fulfill? That's where we start, and we start to look at that. Second thing is to really deep dive in your customers. How do they talk about the pain you solve, or how do they talk about the products you provide or your services that you provide? And I think normally every company, they do this quite a lot, but it might not be part of the CPQ project every time. So make sure you got these two. You know exactly everything there is to know about your customer. And I think there's maybe a ton of information, of course, already out there, maybe even from the B2C world, that you can bring in. Third step is to understand the users of the system, right? And of course, your end customer might be a user, but you can have other channels as well. You can have resellers, dealers, and of course, your direct sales. So then what we try to do in these cases is, we identify all the users. In this case, I have actuators, and it's sold indirect only. We have end customers, and we have resellers. And then we try to document how are they interacting with you. It's a web shop. They probably don't have so much technical knowledge that they need more support. The sales reps at your retailer, it's an overdesk, etc. So we try to identify users, and this means you will get different experiences for different customer groups or channels, if you will. So your direct sales, they will have one view, one set of customers, one way of configuring the product. Your sales engineer here, or your internal technical experts, they will have a different view, which is super technical. Your distributor might need a separate set of questions to interact with their customer, and then you have the self-service. under this is, of course, the same product. All right, so now you have your product, you know everything there is to know about your customers, you understand the system or the users. The next thing is to define the questions. What is it that you need to ask that help your buyers to know which kind of product they should buy? And this is a tricky one. This is like Jeopardy, right? We have the answers, but what's the question? And it's tricky also because different users in the same category think about your product or your services in different ways and have different questions. We looked at here to use tools like if you have had the opportunity to document your customer interactions, maybe through emails or recordings, if that's have been possible. You know, a good way is to just put this in a big model and try to draw a conclusion which questions are the most common, etc., etc. But this is quite tricky and part of the art here. And then, of course, you want to add supporting elements and technologies around this. It's not just about text. There's nothing better, I think, than adding visualization. I mean, what you see is what you get. This is super strong when it comes to guided buying. We talked about AR earlier, the new functionality we have there. So I think these are strong, super strong complements, right? That really help your buyers to understand what they are buying. Maybe not applicable in every industry, but in many. And then we also saw another example this morning where you have a sales assistant. Maybe your buyer have put together an RFP or RFQ or RFX. They upload it, you read it, you interpret it, and you come up with a couple of a possible solution for their problem. So that's a few examples. Then you link these questions to your configuration model, and you go on to the next product or services, and you also refine this. So this is a never-ending. As you learn more and more, and you have this feedback loop that we talked about earlier, you can refine this. All right. How are we on time? Sorry, I forgot to... Are we good on time? Perfect. Okay. So then, a couple of things here. If you do this well, I think it's given, right, that it will drive revenue. Because you can meet your customer when they want to buy, right? They want to buy maybe when you're not even awake or they're in different time zones. So you will match your selling journey with their buying journey. Perfect. This will hopefully drive your win rates and an increased number of quotes you can put out there. So revenue, I think this is strong, and that's a given, right? It will drive your revenue. You will have shorter sales cycle, and I think this is interesting in a way because that's hopefully an efficiency game, right? Gain. You will be more efficient. You have shorter sales cycle. Some of this you can pass on, of course, to your customer. They probably don't have to spend as much time interacting with you, maybe, or learning, or reading, or whatever it might be, right? So they're also happy. They get their share of this efficiency gain. So that will get the customer set up. We talked about this, ramp up your sales rep is becoming a lot faster, or you can even enable maybe a rep-free or low-touch sales environment. Potentially huge savings. And then, once again, I put this in the corner, but I think it should be center. I apologize for that. You learn so much about your customer that you can feed back. So you constantly have this feedback loop. There's so much data you can get on, and this, you will learn more and more about how they operate, how they act, and when they buy, how they buy, which options are never used, etc., etc. And those are, of course, basic information in any CPQ system, but they get a much stronger here. So these are some of the values there. There are others as well, but the major ones. So with that, I hope I inspired you to and also to look deeper into guided buying, why it's so important. It's really an outside-in perspective instead of an inside-out. So with that said, I think I'm pretty much ready to wrap this up.